If you want to learn about the law of attraction, you don't need to take a course, you don't need to buy a book, you can just look to nature. In this video, we're going to talk a bit about how nature teaches us presence and manifestation. So stay tuned. Welcome to this channel. We call this Charmed Life because I truly believe we are here to live a life of magic and wonder. This channel is about magic, mysticism, metaphysics, and the unconditional love of the universe and of nature. This is a portion from my podcast called Charmed Life, and I have a very special guest named Holly Wilmeth, who is an author, a photographer, and a creator of a beautiful deck of oracle cards called Sacred Nature. Holly infuses photography and sculptures of nature into this deck, and it is so wonderful. So check the show notes so you can grab that powerful and beautiful oracle deck, Sacred Nature, and join us for this conversation where we are talking about just the inspiration and the love and the magic of nature. If you want to listen to the podcast, you can find the link in the description. And so here is some of my conversation with Holly Wilmeth, and I will chat with you on the other side. Holly, I am so excited to connect with you. Oh, we have so much in common, and I'm really excited to learn all about your connection, your work. And so, welcome to the podcast. I'll start there. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Tricia. I am excited to be here with you today and to explore this conversation.
Good, me too. Well, let's talk. Let's get it going. Let everyone know who's here. I'm so excited to just have that light of yours just beam out. Can you tell us about your journey and or the work that you are doing?
Yes. Well, I have been a photographer for about 15 years. Actually, oh God, maybe it's been 20 years. It's amazing how quickly time goes by. And over the course of my career, things have really changed. And I'm very excited and where I am now in my photography. One of the things that I've been working with over the last 8, 9 years is animals and with plants. And the plants are the part that I'm very excited about because it's really inspired by watching my son and his awe for the world and nature.
Oh, I love it.
Yes, I've been constructing nature pieces, kind of like sculpture pieces with flowers. Initially, it started out with flowers that were blooming and noticing what was blooming in the world surrounding me. And then I've been creating these pieces, and from creating these pieces, photographing them. So putting them on people and photographing them.
Okay, so you like transposing photographs of flowers onto people? Is that what it is?
No, it's
No.
actually I'm building a piece
Oh.
and then putting it on a person and then photographing them. That's kind of like the last little piece is the photograph. But
Oh.
the sculpture pieces really only last very little. They last enough for the photograph.
Oh, I see. So the sculpture, the medium is actually botanical? It's actual
Yes,
flowers?
it's
Oh,
actually flowers. A
wow.
and the interesting thing is a lot of the flowers don't last very long, you know?
Uh-huh.
Some of them only stay open for about 10 to 20 minutes, so you don't get much time to photograph.
Mm. That's beautiful. I mean, there's a message of deep presence there, isn't there?
It is, exactly. It's all about being in the present moment, and how can we live in the present moment, and that's what this latest project that I worked on was all about, being in the present moment.
Mm. Tell us more about that. I would love to hear more about this present moment project.
Um, well, what inspired the project of Sacred Nature, which is an oracle deck card, is watching my son and really kind of realizing that I as a mother, like, I really wanted to try and be as present as I possibly could with him growing up. And when he was 3, I started watching the way he was just awing at the world all around him. And I could notice sometimes when I would fall back into the past or go into the future, swing between those both edges. And I just kept on watching him and really saying thank you to my son for being a teacher and keeping me in the present moment.
Yes, yes, that's so beautiful. And animals in nature are absolutely present. You know what it actually is? It has to do with the human brain, which is the higher lobe of our brain. I think that is what is distinctive from mammals, at least. With mammals, we have the mammalian brain is the cerebral cortex, and it's the emotional brain. So we have that in common with mammals. And obviously nature and flowers, it's different, but there is a sentience to nature that I think we have in common. Maybe it's not the same kind at all, but I communicate with nature. I can communicate with a tree and a flower, and there's a frequency that comes through. It's not worrying or wondering about the past or future, but it grounds you so deeply in that present moment, and there's a connection.
Exactly. That's what nature gifts us, is really coming into the present moment. And so the project, even though it started off as photographs, it developed into really understanding the energy properties of different flowers and different trees and different plants. So tuning into the energy of plant wisdom was one of the most beautiful ways of working with this project. And I do believe that there's energy and wisdom that comes in all of life on this planet Earth, animal, plant. I mean, this world is alive and it comes with beautiful wisdom. The Japanese used to practice forest bathing, going
Mm.
into the forest and feeling the molecules and the energy of trees just landing on our skin. It creates a healing essence, like a healing balm to our soul. How magnificent is that?
Oh, it is. And just the just the life force. I think that the life force brings with it complexity of it does bring with it presence. It brings awareness. Now, it isn't it's this so I'm an animal communicator and nature communicator as well, but I also teach it. And that's one of my first lessons in teaching animal communication to my students is that we have common we have commonalities with animals or nature, but we aren't exactly the same. So what we want to do is respect their perspective and not project ours onto them. So we can find that now from that place, we can then translate it into something that helps us to understand a little more. So for example, when I'm with a client and the dog, let's say I'll say, I'm feeling a kind of sadness when you leave home. It feels to me like when you have a breakup, when you break up with a boyfriend or girlfriend for the first time. That's obviously they don't break up with boyfriends and girlfriends, but that's what it's familiar. When I take their feeling into my body, that's how I can say this is how it's significant for humans. But the other way around, you know what I mean? To go like, have you ever had a breakup with a girlfriend to a dog? I think that is like that's a miscommunication. Then does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And that's really so beautiful and really quite powerful. So, the project that I worked on before was all about animals.
Oh, and with
And
photography too.
with photography as well, and, it was really so inspiring because it was the way that I personally started really being guided by intuition and
Yeah.
understanding a different way of being in this world.
Mm.
Rather than doing, how about observing? How about being in the presence and noticing sacred pauses, right? And in those sacred pauses, really listening to what is asking to be seen from
Oh.
the outside, also from my inside coming outside too, right? So I'm just thinking of the first image I really ever took for an animal series I worked on was of turtles. I was living on the coast of Oaxaca, and off of the front porch of the house that we had rented on the coast, we would watch the whales, the dolphins, the flying manatees, and the turtles swimming every day. And I really started working with the energy of turtles, right? And it's so earthbound, grounding, and home. It felt really healing inside of me in a time of my life that I really needed it. And so I'm just grateful for the wisdom that almost is, at least from my perspective, it was so naive. I didn't know, right? And yet it was asking to be seen. And
Mm.
with plants, it's, like you were saying, there's communication and it's just different. It's time is different, space is different. And yet we are all kin. We are all beings of this earth. How can we live in the spirit of reciprocity and respect?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a fundamental frequency, no matter what, in that kinship, in that, again, maybe the life force that we can find if we become really present. See, I think that's what it is. If we were to project the human perspective onto a plant or an animal, then we're not actually present with what is available to be seen or heard, as you were saying.
Exactly, exactly. And so the Sacred Nature Oracle deck, I really believe it was, in a way, gifted because it was led. You know, I didn't lead, I was led. But I wanted to play with humans in the sense of the interconnectedness between plants and people. And so that's why I used people, and they were dressed with different plants. But I never knew how the sculpture piece was going to look until the moment of making it on a person.
Mm.
And in a way, it almost felt like the plants were guiding me to create every piece individually.
I love to talk about how plants actually teach us and actually have a beat on what actually the law of attraction is. We call it the law of attraction, but they show us in the seed growth process what the law of attraction actually is. May I share it with you?
Oh, please.
Since we're talking about, all the other stages. So so when a seed is has well, first of all, even before the seed has dropped into the soil, the seed is usually carried upon the wind. Somehow it's been released from a flower, or from a fruit. And however it falls into the earth is that synchronicity. And the wind knows exactly where to place it, or just the earth knows how to receive it. So there's that right there. So then in the earth, the seed has a hard shell, and inside of it, it has a code or a signature of energy that is eventually going to materialize and bust through the shell. So in that code, it sort of has to know itself. It has to collapse like waves collapsing into particles into itself. I mean, that's scientifically what would be happening. Waves collapsing, so they become particular. They become particles, which are building blocks of material. And it has to continue to be itself potently even more until it becomes something inside its shell. While it's doing that, it is like radiating, it is signaling a frequency that the ecosystem is receiving. And as we know, the mycelial network of trees, it's actually a telepathic network. And so it will signal the moisture and the food and whatever it needs as is available by the ecosystem appropriately, and bring it to the seed. So it continues to know itself, signal, and become itself, to where eventually it creates those little tender wet sprouts, right? Little tender wet sprout from inside. And that little tender guy is going to break through that shell. That's what it has to do. Its tender little head will break through. And it's also, I think that the signal is sort of breaking down the shell from the inside too, and then when it breaks open that shell, now that's just like the crone, like the decaying, it becomes a part of the ecosystem. It's giving back. Now the sprout is, I'm just going to keep going through the rest of the story. Now we have the sprout with its tender little head it's interesting because it's the root of it is stronger than its head. If you think about a sprout, right? That's the
Right.
most tender part, but that's the leader, is that vulnerable place of it. And it's moving through the soil, and let's say it hits a rock. Okay, now what does it have to do? It's like the agave. It has to signal itself out. It's like, I'm going around this rock. I'm going to continue to live. I'm going to continue to find maybe the sun with its photosynthesis signal. And so it has to collapse its waves into particles even more so that it will turn the corner around the rock. And that's making it so strong, but it's making it more of who it is
Right.
in that ecosystem, how the synchronicity placed it in the earth and signaled it and brought it the proper nutrients. So eventually it bursts out of the soil. Eventually it blooms in its way, and its color and its quality and its aroma and everything is what the ecosystem asked of it and co-created with it. And then the birds and the flowers and the bees and everybody come to it. Anyway, that's the law of
Oh
attraction.
my goodness, how beautiful, how beautiful. It makes me I can't help but fall in love.
Well, there we have it. I want to invite you to check those show notes so you can get that deck of cards. Also, so that you can find out how I'm offering either mediumship or animal communication. Whenever it is that you're listening to this, you'll find my website down there and see what we are working on at this time. Or it could be spirit animal course, and just ways that we can come together. And also, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel, like this video, share it with someone, leave us a comment, give us some, if you want to ask any questions, or if you want to let us know some magical event that you have had with nature. And of course, you can find me on Instagram as well. And so that's what we have for you in this episode. I hope you find that deck with Holly's and anything else that she has offered, because, oh, what a light. So thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.